Oh, hey, welcome to another Find series. I'm Ben with Anything Scout. Today we're going to check out this 66 Scout 800 4-cylinder 4-speed. It's an amazing truck. Check it out. Okay, so the history on this truck is pretty cool. It is a 1966 Scout 800. So that's when it was made. That's what it is. That's amazing. We got it out of Colorado. The guy that we bought it from had purchased it back in like 2004 from a guy in Pueblo, Colorado, which is cool to like know the backstory, know how long it's been sitting and all that sort of stuff. Some of the dates we can confirm with stuff that was inside the truck. We found some newspapers that were dated in 2004. We found a receipt from eBay for a carburetor that was from 2004 as well, which is awesome because that carburetor is on this Scout, which it's a fully rebuilt carburetor. So we were able to use that carb to start this Scout actually, which was really cool. So just like as your little tip and trick here, as you're looking through the Scout, check everything over, look at it. Don't just dumpster it right away. Put some gloves on and just read through the stuff that's in there and see if you can get clues to the history of the Scout. That's what we always do. It's a great way to find out who owned it, what they did to it, and that sort of stuff. You can always kind of trace it back. Be a detective when you get a Scout. So guys, what do you want to look for when you're looking at purchasing a Scout? Or if you purchase the Scout, look for the problem areas. So what I normally look for first is I just look at the body of the Scout and the condition, rust-wise, dents-wise, all that sort of stuff. See if stuff is still there. All the parts and pieces, we want to make sure it's as complete as possible. That's what I'm always looking for. And you can tell how much the Scout has been messed with by what stuff is there, is not there, is replaced with aftermarket stuff. So just be looking and kind of memorize what's supposed to, how things are supposed to be. Fuel caps on 800s are pretty telltale. Like if it's got wacky fuel caps on it, it means somebody's been doing stuff to it. This one has really original type fuel caps. They're easy to get, the original style ones. So if it's got something wacky on it, it's usually a sign that stuff's been done to it. Aftermarket mirrors, the more holes generally it has in the door, the worse it is. No doors on this one, so hard to tell. Same with the top. If it's been all dented in or messed with, you can tell how well it's been kept from those types of little things. Now, rust-wise, we want to look at back here on Scout 800s. There's a lip on the bottom of the floor, basically inside there. And you can always tell the condition of that by looking in the wheel well, and you'll see if it's a good rust-free Scout, there won't be any bubbling there. Most Scouts though have a lot of bubbling along there. It's just a matter of how bad is that bubbling. This one has some bubbling. You can see it's not perfect, but it's also not so far gone that it's a difficult repair to make. So it's a pretty easy, straightforward rust repair for there. I always look there, and then a lot of times they'll have floor mats in them. This one had a floor mat, and you never know what's underneath there. And if you haven't purchased it yet, you don't want to go yanking that up because the owner might get mad at you. So a good way to look is to look underneath the Scout, look at the floor from the bottom for the front floors. A lot of times you can tell if there's holes in there. If there's like nothing there, you should be a little concerned. If there's some holes and stuff like that, that's pretty normal. Most 800s that we deal with need new front floors. It's just kind of a given with 800s. But check the structural integrity of it, because if it's rusty not only on the flat part of the floor but up the sides and the inner rockers are gone, then you're looking into trouble. You know, like, be aware of what you're getting. You're always going to have rust with 800s, so it's just a matter of looking at how much rust you're going to get. This Scout actually has very solid bones, I would say. It doesn't have a lot of rust down at the bottom of the quarter panel, which is pretty normal. A good thing to do is to look inside where the gas tank is with a flashlight, and see if that's been patched there. That's pretty common. Just look at the quality of the patches, make sure they're not like patched with some road sign or license plates, random stuff that people patch things with. Back to our story of being a detective, we found that receipt for the carburetor in the back and looked in the engine bay, saw the carburetor on the engine was pretty new. So we said, oh wow, what else is new on here? There's new hoses to the radiator, a bunch of other new components in there that made us think, oh hey, somebody's been working on this. Let's check the oil, check the antifreeze, see if those are in good condition. They were. So then we're a little bit more hopeful about this engine being able to run. Our story is we already had this Scout. We bought it a little bit sight unseen, but not, I mean, we looked at it very briefly before we bought it. But looking at it after we bought it, we're like, okay, let's see if we can get this thing running. We saw those new components on there, so we gave it a shot, put a little gas in the carburetor, hooked up a battery to it, and cranked it over. First, we cranked it over just to see if the engine was free, if it was moving all right. Obviously, we checked all the fluids already, so we're just seeing if everything's okay internally. Everything sounded good. So then we went for a full startup, and it started up, ran, which is really exciting. We were super excited.
Okay, so we decided to give this thing a little try. It looked like everything mechanically is right. So we put some gas in the carb. I'm gonna stand back, give her a shot, man. We put a jump pack on it. Yep. Woo! Thing runs good. I already checked the oil, don't worry. Told you, man, this is a strong runner. We're gonna keep, I'm gonna put a little more gas in it. Throttle's hard to control. Running off the tank, amazing. Sounds really good. How's the oil pressure? Real good. Press the clutch. Can you press the clutch? Stuck? No, it's not doing anything. What? But the linkage isn't moving. Oh. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna mess with it a little more. Dude, we're stoked. This thing is idling on its own. Pristine. The clutch works, and so does the sweet 4-speed. So we're gonna go take it for a drive. I can't resist. Oh yeah, and here's the floors. Rear floor, pretty dang solid. And bonus of the day, giant 3.5-inch tube roll bar. Nice tailgate.
Gas gauge works.
Working gas gauge, amazing.
There she goes, under its own power.
Woo!
Yeah, so if you're, that was a cool experience, something to look for. If you're looking for a daily driver and you're buying it and you don't really know what you're getting into, look for those things. Look for new components on the engine. Even if the guy that you're buying it from isn't sure if it runs or not, just look for what's been done to it. If it's pretty complete looking, these IH motors generally, if they've been like kept complete, they're usually, I say usually, it's not a given, but it's usually going to be able to start and run. It'll take some work, but you want to make sure that the main components are all still there. It's really a good sign if the hoses are all still hooked up, like the heater core on this wasn't blocked off, the heater hoses weren't disconnected. You start getting into those and the systems have been, filled with dirt or rust, left open for a long time, then you're getting into trouble and you probably will have some difficulty getting it running. So look out for that kind of stuff, just being complete. If bonuses are if the hoses are new, belts are new, stuff like that, that's always a good sign. Now, so check out the interior as well. We don't want to forget about what's going on inside. One thing to check is all the wiring there? That's one thing I'm always looking for. How hacked up is the wiring? If it's got a bunch of Scotch locks in there, if you don't know what a Scotch lock is, just look it up. It's a terrible wiring hack. It basically takes and pinches two wires together with a little staple thing basically. Not a great way to wire. Always pretty much means trouble in a wiring harness. Anytime I see that, I'm like, this wiring harness is probably not going to be in good shape. So check it over really good. If there's just like one or two of those, it might be okay. If there's a ton of them, start looking and you're going to be in trouble probably. But look at the wiring harness, peek up underneath the dash, see how much of it's complete. Check in the engine bay, see how much is complete. Make sure nothing's been really hacked as far as the wiring harness goes. The next thing I look for are the gauges stock. Does it have a bunch of really rigged gauges in there? This one has some aftermarket gauges, but they're tactfully put in, which is a good sign. Like if it has gauges bolted everywhere, that's usually trouble for me. I'm usually doubting the ability to run this thing, because usually, I don't know why, but when there's aftermarket gauges and wiring messed with, the people that owned them before beat on them. It's usually a sign of I'm gonna rip this thing through a mud puddle and drive it like a maniac and just never take care of it. That's not always true, but it just seems to be true more often than not. So the next thing to check out is the floors. Obviously I said to check that from the bottom side, but check the rear floor also. There are seams along the back of the rear floor that you can see. If it's really swollen or wavy along there, that's going to be an area of rust, and you want to make sure that that's in good condition. You might notice these seats are actually the wrong year for this Scout. This is a 66 Scout. These are more like 69, 70 seats. But it's cool that they're the wrong seats for this 800, but they're still 800 seats. That's a good sign. That means this guy that owned this before was a Scout guy. Didn't put weird aftermarket seats in there. So you've got some original seats you can get recovered and still have 800 parts in there, which is great. It's a good plus. Another good plus, dash pad's still there, sun visors are still there. That's all good stuff to look out for. And the heater duct is still there. I always like to make sure that that's at least with the Scout. A lot of times those get taken out when somebody's dealing with wiring problems. Cool thing to do, checking out the interior, is to shift through the gears on the transmission and count how many gears it has. This one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, reverse, way up over to the right. That means that this is a 4-speed transmission, which is pretty rare in an 800. I mean, rare like hen's teeth. It's amazing. You never find this. So it's always worth checking the transmission, see what gears you've got. Most of the time it's going to be reverse, first, second, third, and that's all you got. But in this case, we've got a 4-speed transmission with a 4-cylinder engine. This is a really rare combo. Great find, really. You should always check. Just give it a feel. Check what the transmission's got for gears, because this was an amazing, I'm talking amazing find here. The 4-speed transmission. Rare. Very rare. Rare like I like my steaks. Rare. Very rare. Talking rare. I don't know what to say. All right, just to wrap it on up, we got a 4-cylinder 196 4-speed 1966 Scout 800 that we got out of Colorado. Really cool truck, really cool find with the 4-speed transmission. If you want any more tips and tricks, let us know what your questions are when you're trying to find a Scout. We'll be glad to help and answer those questions if we can. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos with your friends, especially if they're into Scouts. But even if they're not, just send them the Scout video. It's awesome. They'll love it. Thanks, guys.